Okay, the reading for this week is a short story by Furukawa Hideo, the contemporary writer, and the story is called Now There Is Neither Purity Nor Defilement. It was published in 2012, and the translation is by me, and the translation appears in volume 4 of the literary journal of contemporary Japanese literature called Monkey Business. And I will put links to the journal and to the original version of this story below, along with some with the study guide, which includes some information about the author, Furukawa Hideo. It's the end of a very long day. We've had classes. We're all very tired, but we're going to do a quick recitation in the study guide. I'm going to start with the study guide for this work. It's a very strange work. I don't know what to make of it. Hopefully you guys can help me make sense of it. And I will give you some questions to think about as you read it, but the main thing is to just kind of enjoy the weird, psychotic quality of this work as you read it. Okay, number 1, identify the setting of each scene. It jumps around quite a bit, doesn't give you any indication that it will be jumping around. It just suddenly shifts scenes, and the characters suddenly shift, so keep this all in mind as you read it. Number 2, make a narrative timeline of the whole story. This is very difficult to do because it doesn't seem to go according to the regular passage of time, and but try to do that and see if you can make sense of it temporally. Number 3, there are 2 narrators in the work. Their narratives are woven together and they often intersect. So sometimes it seems the 2 narrators have blended into a single narration. Other times it's clear that there are 2 narrators. Describe these narrators in as much detail as you can. Is either of them a self-conscious narrator? This is a term that we've already gone over and we've seen many examples of the self-conscious narrator, namely a narrator who is aware of the fact that he is a narrator in a story. If so, identify passages that suggest an awareness of their status as narrators. Number 4, go through each sentence and determine who is narrating. Are there any passages where it is not clear who the narrator is? Does the switch in narrators ever occur in mid-sentence? And I think the answer to this is yes. We have one sentence where narrator 2 kind of picks up from the second half of the sentence. Number 5, identify all the fantastical and surrealistic, and I would add psychotic, elements of the work. There are many. Number 6, what are the meze and goze that appear in the work? Meze, goze, the kanji for it's uma atama and ushi atama, the kanji for meze and goze. These are sort of mythical figures that appear often in Jigoku, Hen, and various in visual arts of the Edo period and so forth. What is the connection between meze number 9 and the girl? Discuss the function and significance of meze and goze in the work. Number 7, identify the humorous elements in the story. Is there a gap between style and subject? So, for example, at the very end of the story, it's describing the bombing of Hiroshima, but it's doing so in a very, very strange way, in a strange style, where the style doesn't really match the content being described. Explain this sort of disjunction between the style and the subject of the work. Number 8, discuss the role of music in the work. So it starts with some rock and roll allusions. I think classical Beethoven appears at one point. Discuss the role of music in the work. What musical references are made? How does music relate to the main theme of the story? If there is a main theme, I don't even know because it's so psychotic. What musical references are present? I just said that. Why does the rooster taste of rock and roll? What does that mean that the rooster takes of rock and roll? And it starts to sing that Wap Baba Doo Bop song in the middle of the story, I think, if I remember correctly, by, what's his name? The Wap Baba Doo Bop Baba Boo Gal, who's the singer of that? Don't worry about it. It's the black guy who died a few years ago. I can't remember his name. How does music relate to the main theme? Why does the rooster take a taste of rock and roll? What is this business with the Sony Walkman in the final section at the bombing of Hiroshima scene? Number 9, discuss the style. What literary and rhetorical techniques are used? Number 10, discuss the visual imagery of the work. In the work, this is also a lot of psychotic, strange imagery. What is its overall effect? The story will, for any of you who have done LSD in the past, the story will kind of have you, what do they call it, flashbacks. It might induce flashbacks in you because it has a kind of LSD effect overall. Number 11, what is the connection between the goat and the girl? What is the significance of their duet that they sing together? Number 12, what are the main themes of the work? Explain. And to this date, I still don't know what the main themes are, so hopefully you can help me figure out what they are. Number 13, identify and discuss the Buddhist imagery and references that appear in the work. How do these relate to the theme of the work? And I think in that scene, whether in the Vietnam War, I think it is, and Amida Buddha appears suddenly or is intoned suddenly, what is the point of that sudden reference to Buddhism in the intonation of the Amida Buddha? Number 14, discuss the significance of the following passage, particularly with reference to the theme of historical memory. So I asked what the themes of the work are. I think historical memory is one of the themes. I don't know exactly what the author is trying to say about historical memory, but that seems to be one of the themes running through it. And discuss the significance of this passage, namely where the one that begins, "The diaries you are chewing on are the diaries I am now supplementing. It's just that for each diary your stomach decomposes, you race further toward the resurrection. With each notebook that your stomach breaks down, wait, resurrection? Isn't this a garbled metaphor? I don't even know. All I can say is that with each notebook your stomach digests, you roundly embody another aspect of the universe. I could probably replace roundly embody with master a posteriori, or make flesh and blood might work too. For this is why I write, why I wrote then, why I am writing now, with this little hand that is not even 10, with these little fingers and a big pen." Alright, so there's some weird kind of shoujo manga, pop culture elements that run throughout the work too. You want to help me make sense of those as well. Number 15, discuss the significance of the following passage. Is this episode to be read as an allegory? And here's the passage. "Sever it," you crooned. "You instruct this goat in purgatory to sever the cycle now. For this is the main theme. You must stop devouring these telegrams, these tidings and these telegrams." The theme evolves. "Here, chew on this instead, as a surrogate." What exactly did you hand over? Though a matter purely of song lyrics, what? The this that you sang was that, you know what. And it is now time for you to hand it over. Hand over that. You will extend your hand, and I shall hand over this. You are now fully mindful. The scene is now devoid of all mindlessness. You will presently offer him your hell diary as a surrogate edible paper. I will offer him my hell diary as surrogate. That's right. I'm the one doing the thinking now. The so-called hell diary that belonged to number 9. You follow? Meza number 9 was me, you see, and the mother's was my affiliation. I was the hell warden who kept a diary of what happened. I hand over the diary. And what happened, of course, is the bombing of Hiroshima, which constitutes the final scene of this work. And the final question, number 16, consider this motif of burning or incinerating memories that opens the story. How does it relate to the episode with the goat, the atomic bombing at the end, and the Vietnam War dream, and also the Buddhist references and notions of transmigration, or rinne, samsara as we say in Sanskrit, or rinne as we say in Japanese? How does that motif of burning or incinerating memories that runs throughout the story relate to those 4 things? And then I have a note on your study guide about Gokusotsu and some various other strange, fantastical, mythical creatures that appear in the work. Alright, that is all for now. I will now hand over the microphone to my assistant Nicole, and she will, as always, mellifluously and beautifully read my translation of the work in its entirety. That is all for now. Goodbye.
Neither purity nor defilement now. I shall not burn memories. Let me state this resolution somewhat differently. I shall not dispose of memories via incineration. Yes, that's not a bad way to put it. A moment ago I awoke from a dream, just a simple, ordinary dream. As I came to, I felt no rush of excitement as if I were about to be born, nor did I feel any compulsion to cry out like a newborn baby. Simply had a dream, the contents of which I will soon divulge. The matter was elsewhere. Something was the matter, you see, certainly. A sentient being, disposed of by incineration. In fact, the incineration was carried out by the will of the incinerated. Let me rephrase. Leaping into a fire, had it been human, this would have been a case of self-immolation. But that wasn't the case. Consigning himself to the roaring flames, the rooster let out a majestic cry. Yet this cry was neither a cockle-doodle-doo nor a kokoriko, but was rather a most extraordinary melody. And it is also a fact that I ate him to stave off starvation. I swallowed the lightly roasted flesh of this self-martyring chicken, consumed his charred bones, gnawed on the soft parts, sucked on the marrow. I bit into his coxswain, and seeing that it was edible, proceeded to devour it as well. A strange gelatin. I even put the heart of the rooster into my mouth and swallowed. Why? Because I recovered that which he believed in. His flesh tasted of rock and roll, his bones throbbed in rhythm, his coxswain emitted the pure thumping of a bass guitar, and his heart let out a shout. In my head this came together as a single voice, the voice echoing for eternity, shouts of rock and roll. I had eaten rock and roll. Certain parts were left unburned. The talons of his 2 feet, and his gold leg ring, his demarcation ring, which I had given him. It was I who had fastened it to his ankle, as proof that he belonged to me. Now this golden ring sits in my pocket, tucked away, blackened, stain and all. Tomorrow I will loop it through my cell phone strap, string it through, but what about today? Today I will... Yes. I will relate to you the dream that I had, the dream from which I just awoke, that simple, ordinary dream. I dreamt of soldiers unable to get a proper night's sleep. Soldiers is a rather imprecise way of putting it. Surely I'm capable of simple classification, even if the scene is embedded in infantrymen of the U.S. Armed Forces, commonly referred to as GIs. I understood this much. I understood that these were GIs, understood that their affiliation was the U.S. Army, and understood that the earth on which they tread is that of the Indo-Chinese peninsula. Understand, I say in present tense, for in a dream reenactment, this strikes me as more appropriate than the past tense. Some of these men, the infantrymen, the GIs, are white and some are black. The blacks are greater in number. The blacks understand this too, but are nonetheless pitted against the yellows. Wait, this nomenclature does not exist in the Japanese language. It is a ghost word, a word that never existed, so let me rephrase it. The yellow races. That is, people whose skin pigmentation is neither white nor category of yellow. As for the affiliation of these adversarial yellow races, they belong to the land that belongs to no nation or no national army in the sense that the GIs belong to the US or the US Army. The land of the Indo-Chinese peninsula. What sort of land is this? I'm looking out at this scene because I can. Although the scene might be viewed in a full 360-degree arc, my dream perspective is limited to the 120 degrees before me. Yet I look on. A landscape pocketed with unsightly craters, relics of bombing raids. As the soldiers trudge through this landscape, I come to realize that all I am seeing, experiencing, and apprehending is the totality of which the soldiers are seeing, experiencing, and apprehending, or perhaps the totality of what they are understanding. The region is rife with landmines. Beyond, the air is thick with Agent Orange. But beyond what? I assume beyond right here. But just then my field of vision switches via a technique that is like a strange cross between a zoom and a jump cut. In short, a technique that is cinematic but not of the cinema. And my perspective suddenly shifts to the here that is before me, to the exquisite zone of paddy fields. I can hear myself breathing, exhaling in short, wheezy pants. I am marching along the front line. My eyes apprehend the water buffaloes. Led by peasants, these even-toed, ungulate livestock roam to and fro along the stretch of paddies before me, plowing the fields until they are run through with bullets. Then suddenly there is a change in key. The hue of the front line modulates without any zoom or jump cut, and my buddies, my fellow black and white U.S. Army combatants, start to topple over dead. 2 types of bullets whiz through my field of vision. One type I know to be the red bullets of some communist bloc nation, yet there are no reds here, but only the whites and the blacks and the invisible yellows as the peasants are slowly drawn into the fight, and the water buffaloes that let out their infinitely plaintive roar as they receive the stray bullets are black, and suddenly just above their heads the relief helicopters enter the scenes, a sound, a roar produced by the revolving rotors, then the hail of machine guns fire from a clear blue sky, and I realize that all is about to burst. The sound is about to burst into pieces, but what about the view? An exquisite stretch of paddy fields. The scene seems magnificent, inflated as through a zoom lens. The lush green presses in, and I take one last look at the beautiful scene. Then I defect, leaving the perspective of these frontline entrymen, fated to vanish into the earth's dew. I enter a kind of panoptic view, through a veritable flying leap. Nam, I think. This is Nam, Vietnam, potential enemy territory, which is why the GIs can't get a proper night's sleep. And because they can't get a proper night's sleep, they are deprived too of their dreams, and this battlefield, this Nam, is awash with the myriad perspectives of these sleep-deprived GIs marching forever onward. The land abounds with a myriad of here's I enter. The exquisite stretch of paddy fields, the exquisiteness of Vietnam. This is Nam, tragic orifice of history. Nam, like a surrogate dream experienced in real time. That is, in this ordinary waking world of neither REM sleep nor non-REM sleep, by those deprived of their REM dreams. And with this thought my flying leap comes to an end. Through an abrupt cutout my panoptic view terminates. I exit the dream. The present tense switches to the far more appropriate past tense, and the dream I am having becomes the dream I had, the dream I promised to divulge. From this dream I awoke. Nam? Why Nam? I too possess an intuition, and this intuition responds immediately, because Namu. I see. One does well to elicit this word, namu, from the Japanese lexicon like an idiomatic phrase and incantation. The word is usually chanted as in the phrase Namu Amida Butsu, Hail Amida Buddha. The word namu is originally a transcription from Sanskrit. The word nam, spoken by the GIs, is of course American slang. The country Vietnam is of course a Vietnamese word, and before the Sanskrit-derived Japanese word Namu of Namu Amida Butsu existed, there were the canonical texts of Buddhism and traditional Chinese. The Indian subcontinent, the North American continent, the Japanese archipelago, and the Asian side of the Eurasian continent all skewered by this word over the course of thousands of years. 3 words strung together in the series of sounds. Namu Amida Butsu. Amida is written with 3 ideographs. A, mi, and da. You don't say, is this, then what prompted my dream? Was my dream the last dying dream of those poor, sleep-deprived GIs? Or was it because Vietnam was compiling its own rock and roll soundtrack for the American War? I happen to know that it is a historical fact that the Vietnam War was really the American War. I happen to possess an awareness that this was written in Hideo Furukawa's 2005 rock and roll septology. Is this an awareness? The memory has not been incinerated. It links back to something, but there are interruptions, discontinuities, or rather, the link is compromised mostly of the interruptions and discontinuities. But that's okay with me, for the flavor of rock and roll lingers in my mouth. Because of this, I understand what I am capable of. I shall confront phenomena only. Hup! The girl muses. Steadfast, she reiterates her intention to confront phenomena only. This ejaculation, hup, bespeaks a desire to be rephrased as let's rock, while at the same time carrying the potential to be replaced with let's roll. She knew that the English verb to roll also contained the meaning to tumble or to transmigrate, but it did not occur to her that this is English, and so she did not verbalize it as such. That is to say, she did not say to herself, this is English. I am English. Not true. You're a liar. Naturally, the girl understood this, for she is Japanese, despite her excessive tan. Her skin pigmentation was the very texture of summer, and moreover, she was keenly aware that the introduction, hup, meant perforce encompass the meanings to roll and to transmigrate. Hup! Let's go. Let's roll. Let's transmigrate. Which is why the mystic hup from this ejaculation she commenced her undertaking, which began with the smallest of trifles. Her first order of business was to confirm. I must confirm who it is I am. Having irrevocably passed through the imaginary birth canal long ago, she could not help but acknowledge her own ontological reality. This morning I took a hard look at myself and saw that I too was simply another phenomenon. Hup! 2, 3, 4. Who am I then? I am the girl who is not yet 10, who wears her hair in long braids. I am the girl. This flurry of words recognizes and defines her, strikes her silhouette, fortifies her. Just what is this girl? A girl is a paltry thing. That summer was salvaged. That summer, of that Tokyo, recuperated. The girl did not grow any older. So long as she swore never to age another year, all remained on the verge of happening. Forever on the brink of double digits, of turning 10. Eternally on the eve of everything, as it were. Or as she rephrased it, everything is perpetually at the stage of becoming. She felt this a most appropriate paraphrase. What season did it feel like then, once summer was lost? Like spring? Winter? The girl remembered winter as something embedded within her, or rather, more like a touch so distinct it could issue orders. She could touch winter with her hand. She touches it now too, but only faintly. Oh, winter. And from a global perspective, Tokyo's summers always corresponded to summers in the northern hemisphere and to winters in the southern hemisphere, say in Argentina or Brazil or Australia. It made little difference to her whether it felt like winter or spring or fall, for during this interval a sanctuary was erected and the refugees in certain districts were successfully militarized, and ultimately summer was restored. That summer in that Tokyo, what remained to be restored was now Tokyo itself. The restoration of Tokyo. This will be your task. Let me refer to you as you. For you are the subject who both rolls of her own accord and causes Tokyo to roll by commanding roll and let it roll, which is why you may be regarded as the subject who will initiate the apocalypse. Hence I shall refer to you as you, received with pleasure my manner of writing. But you still refute me, insisting that the one who will bring Tokyo, this summer's Tokyo, and the near myriad Tokyos of all other seasons, to the brink of destruction, cannot be you. This is not that type of girl, you say. From your standpoint, this is a reasonable refutation. Reasonable indeed. Which is precisely why you are urging the refugees to militarize, and why you are secretly initiating what can only be called the phase of armed sound struggle, or at least trying to imitate this phrase in hopes of joining the hostilities, of taking the enemy by storm. Listen, girl, mount your invasion of hell, the breeding ground of demons. But the weapon you carry is neither sparrowly slaying blade, that all-powerful utensil, the throwable steak knife, nor rifle, nor machine gun. No, your only missiles are those memories and memory genes that went unburned. In a word, your myriad hereditary powers. Powers that now reveal themselves. This morning you went underground, through a fissure in the road, a road that had totally caved in. This was the submerged zone, but it was also the front line. There was a barricade. The barricade was built by your side. Its base was the wreckage of the taxi squadron whose yellow hulks were stacked in a massive pile. Through this barricade, you and your men, the we you refer to yourselves as, ventured underground. We shall avail ourselves of the underground tracks. To compete with this cunning lot, the same degree of cunning is required of us. You wore a dress. The pattern on the dress was a sunflower. First you used the rope ladder. The escape route led you further down. The knowledge to navigate the system of underground roads and tracks was yours, but the knowledge that guided your several dozen followers was not yours. That had to be derived from a memory that you did not incinerate, that was not incinerated. From a memory embedded inside you like an emblem of memory. That memory is a number. The nifty number 9. I was number 9. You immediately disavow this thought. No, it wasn't me who was number 9. It was Zoo Demon, one of the mothers. This way, right? With ease, you proceeded to distill knowledge from memory. Effortlessly, you deduced information about your location and bearing. Only after this did you use your own knowledge. You knew Tokyo like the back of your hand, and you made use of this knowledge. You also knew that Tokyo once had a subway system, and that this subway system had long since been abandoned, and so you used this knowledge to your advantage as well. Be careful up along the tracks. I received reports of certain areas being submerged in water. It would be lunatic to try to swim through these spots, so you'd better curb your adventurous spirits. Fish inhabit these areas. Samples have been caught. The fish have metamorphed psychologically. Their gills perform extreme functions, clearly taking in more than just oxygen. Several species have human ears. Tumbling to the deepest depths of the submerged zones are rail cars, which trained fanatics in Sanctuary have identified through photographic evidence as the old Model 2000 Aiden subway cars, and in these depths the oysters flourish, though they cannot be eaten. As for the flashlights, listen up now, lest they become luring lamps, beckoning the will-o'-the-wisps. According to the experts, approximately 80% of all will-o'-the-wisps are compromised of deep-seated grudges that have undergone single-cell fissure. This sort of science speak strikes us as quite ludicrous. Dumb, even. Nonetheless, the advice itself is instructive, so... Are you listening? Heed my words now. For that which is dangerous is exceedingly dangerous. With a purity factor of 100%. The wind sounds protractedly, sounds like a howl. Sadly, the sunflower pattern on your dress did not glow in this underground darkness. By noon you had surfaced. There was a toll gate. You looked around. This must be the superhighway. The toll gates are unattended. Hell has not yet undergone motorization. There's the overhead railway, and there's the container depot, and over there, the superfluid concrete factory. When you look down, you can see the landfill thermoelectric power plant. This too is completely useless in hell. It seems we've existed the place we were meant to exist. We also seem to have successfully exercised our cunning, for we've now emerged into our intended destination. Look, there's an immigration bureau, abstract and concrete, which means we're already in the port of Tokyo. This highway is a bridge. Hup, 2, 3, 4. Naturally, your advance was thwarted. Or rather, a will to thwart your advance had manifested itself. This'll run rampant. On the bridge. The bridge that's in Hell's borders. Bridges surrounded by a ring of fire, by innumerable rings of fire. It's a psychological blaze, you said. Your smooth, not yet 10-year-old face was lit up by the flames. The pattern on your dress now glowed in rich profusion. Black plumes of soot shot upwards, billowing into the air in all directions. The shoulder fastener on your dress creaked. Making an arc with your right arm, you gently reached back as if to throw a knife in slow motion. As much as a tenth of the flame bequeathed to this moment to the sweep of your right arm. The blazing fires yielded. Stuff of hell attributed to hell alone. The blazing fires yielded to your movements. My supernormal powers, you stated bluntly. You then summon your hereditary powers, including those preserved through phylogenetic memory. To whom did these... To number 9, you answered promptly. It wasn't me, but it was she who was number 9, so these memories belonged to her. A Mezu, she was endowed with all the powers bestowed upon Mezus, and naturally her demonic powers were supernatural in nature. Do you doubt that I, too, can exert these powers? So you did, prompting the faster of your dress to snap like a whip. Marshalling 20, even 30% of the now unchecked rings of fire, you made your apparently been stretched across the port of Tokyo. The hell flames split in rapid succession. You adroitly seized the smoke out and, rendering it into a brush, proceeded to write some quasi-Sanskrit letters, what looked like a D and an M. The former produced the sound hun, the latter produced the sound ni. Rocket fire whizzed through the air. This was but one manifestation of your sundry supernatural powers. Your men, those whom you refer to by the plural, you, were bequeathed 89 caliber bazookas from the firmament. Bequeathed? From the firmament? No, silly. From inside the blaze. It was a simple transference of materials, but it proceeded in a manner most befitting hell. You follow? You rectified all misunderstandings in the vicinity. Hell's legions squared off against your forces, twice on this bridge, and once were routed. At dusk you arrived at the mansion and promptly confiscated it. Yet, in your mind, you had simply returned home. The owner of the mansion had the body of a Mezu, belonged to one of Hell's more respectable casters, and was known by a single-digit figure, the number 9. Quickly you led your subordinates across the mansion's interior. The den was where you remembered it. You peeped in to find the writing desk as you remembered it, but you did not approach, for now at least. You led your men out into the garden. From hither you led them thither. Naturally, you were the first to open the door to the barn. Ah! Here's the goat. There was the goat, cloven-hooved and 7 meters tall at the withers. He even looked a bit hell-conscious. His kingliness lies in his beard. Thick and grizzled, it dangles 2 meters below his jaw. 2 meters of dangled beard. When he gives his head a slight shake, his beard sways with a rustle, loosing a small gale inside the barn. Occasionally the tip of his beard inadvertently tilts the ground, leaving a trail as would a comb. King rather than queen, the goat is male. He has horns that are thick as brambles, so enormous that their precious number cannot be determined. Just then he begins to bleat. Ba! Ba! The walls of the barn vibrate with each wail. This wailing might be translated as an expression of nostalgia or welcome home. Might the goat be howling, "Welcome home!" to his master? His body is white all over. His peculiar odor carries a trace of sulfur, needless to say the scent of hell. His hooves can easily trample to death any small canine such as a Pomeranian or a Maltese, maybe even a seal. Stamp and crush underfoot all those pinniped marine animals on the seashore. But this is no seahorse, so this explanation isn't appropriate. Beside the goat is his wooden feed bucket containing potassium salt mined from a mineral spring. He licks the potassium salt. Perhaps chloride nitrate is mixed with it too, for the thickness of the luster changes each time its contents are altered, by which I mean each time his tongue alters the contents. But unlike the eyes of a cat, the goat's eyes contract horizontally and then widen. He laughs intermittently. Curling his upper lip, he grins. There is no more than a simple phlegm in response, an action to attract the attention of a female. In short, this male goat is rutting, as male gates are wont to do. It is only natural that he, a post-pubescent male and moreover king of the barn, should grow sexually aroused from time to time. And this not yet 10-year-old Japanese girl is indeed a paltry thing before this enormous beast. Looking up at him, she keenly feels their difference in size, like a chicken looking up at a human or other big animal, or an egg-laying white leghorn regarding a child from the ground level. This girl, who can only feel an overwhelming sense of déjà vu at this concept, is of course you. You then proceed to address the goat. "Hey there, big guy. If you happen to receive a telegram, try not to eat it, okay?" You then break out in song. "You silly thing, silly big thing, your preposterous dimensions notwithstanding, you're just a goat, and hence cannot escape your goat nature. Oh boy, by dimensions I mean size, silly. Ah shucks, by nature I mean the propensity of yours, for you are the one known to the world as Mr. White Goat, of the nursery rhyme, The Goat's Mail. And so the next time you receive from a so-called Mr. Black Goat, wait, let me revise this. Next time you receive a telegram from a certain Mr. Black Goat, you will promptly nibble it to bits. The question then is, how come? Some may say, because it's your nature. And after all, old-fashioned epistles are tacky, making for delectable paper. Indeed, they would be right. That's what makes them epistles. Oh, you big lug, you. What do you think of this nursery rhyme? Of this song that exposed your secret on a national scale? Of this ineluctable propensity of yours, of this most embarrassing tendency of yours? Honestly, what do you think? As a member of the goat family, your answer will be, for us this is a song of prophecy, for in an era before male was crowned with the letter E, it was quite hazardous to correspond via mail. Hazardous, or as they say in English, dangerous. You see, whenever we goats receive a random telegram, we enter into one might call a never-ending loop? Oh no! The so-called Mr. White Goat and the so-called Mr. Black Goat in a never-ending loop of dispatching and devouring and dispatching and devouring these dangerous, old-fashioned epistles. No! You see what I'm trying to say? You understand me, don't you? Writing like this will never end. The repetition is infinite. No! But then again, all compounded phenomenon are impermanent. Like, what is there to be done? Aye, the burning question. Is there no reprieve from this barren fate? Might we, for instance, will you at least hear my words? Listen to my admonition? That was a song you sang. Be amazed! Its rich lyrics were fraught with an incipient, quasi-rhyme distinct from rhyme per se, while its inordinate randomness produced a confused and derailed rhythm. Yet this alone wasn't enough to make it a song. As it stood, it was not yet worthy of the name music. It lacked one critical element. Accompaniment, or an interlude, I should say. Just then the goat frequently wept. King of the barn, he frequently howled and wailed. His howl was a rhythmic rallying cry. The interlude processed as follows. First you called to the goat, "Hey, big boy." The 7-meter tall beast responded with a ba ba. Noting a certain stress in your voice, the goat responded almost reflexively with a downbeat ba, and then a bewildering howl of but, Bah. When you called, "Oh, silly thing," the goat responded with a, "Yes, master." And when you cried, "Oh, you big lug you," the goat responded, "Yes, how can I help you?" And when you sang to him, "Oh, big silly thing," the goat answered in overflowing cadences with, "You talking to me?" Then at some point, melody was affixed to your voice. Yes, a melody. It was now a song. Music had come into being. Softly, almost imperceptibly, you and the giant goat together in concert inside the barn that is in Hell's barracks. You did not grasp what had come into being. Although you were incognizant of the fact the song was an omen, the world was trembling. What name would you have attached to it had you recognized it as a song? What title would you have given it? The song had no purpose. To wit, it would simply be called The Goat and Me, a song free of contrivance. But this purported ditty had a theme. Its lyrics were intended to lead you and the goat by moral example, lead you to righteousness. This you who sang to the goat, addressing him in the second person, are in my narrative as a second person, which is to say that this second person pronoun is you that had brought into being a second person. But let's leave it at that for now. Besides, styles of writing may change at any moment, may suddenly metamorphose. What matters now is this nursery rhyme, the song that depicts in a never-ending loop the epistolary correspondence between a certain Mr. White Goat and a certain Mr. Black Goat, who in Japan are lauded as national heroes and whose song you sang in a manner that might be regarded as nationalistic. "Sever it," you crooned. You instruct this goat in purgatory to sever the cycle now. For this is the main theme. You must stop devouring these telegrams, these tidings and these telegrams. The theme evolves. Here, chew on this instead, as a surrogate. What exactly did you hand over? Through a matter of purely song lyrics, what? The this that you sang was that. You know what? And now it's time for you to hand it over. Hand over that. You will extend your hand, and I shall hand over this. You are now fully mindful. The scene is now devoid of all mindlessness. You will presently offer him your hell diary as surrogate edible paper. I will offer him my hell diary as surrogate. That's right. I'm the one doing the thinking now. The so-called hell diary that belonged to number 9. You follow me? Mezu number 9 was me, you see, and the mother's was my affiliation. I was the flesh-feeding, semi-human hell warden who kept a diary of what happened. I hand over the diary. All diaries are sufficient for consumption. More precisely, all diaries exist in order to be consumed. Hup, let us commence the feeding. Perhaps by feeding the goat my diary, I am breaking him in. To think, me, a mere girl of not even 10 years old, trying to tame this gigantic goat. How incongruous. Can you picture it? Do you think it's implausible? Implausible or imprudent or something? Actually, it's neither implausible nor imprudent, and I can prove this claim. You see, I possess the memory genes and hereditary powers of Mezu number 9, hence my memories are her memories. I can reach into her chest at any moment and say laughingly, "It's only supernatural powers, silly." Hup, 2, 3, 4. Notebooks. Any used notebook is sufficient for disposing of defiled beings. Let me rephrase that slightly. Any notebook is sufficient for disposing of any sentient being, including the goats ruled by the Mezu. For soon there will be neither purity nor defilement. This statement transcends paraphrasing. I don't mind. I have already broken in the goat, you see. He bleats as he takes the diary in his mouth. He masticates the diary. He seems to recognize me as his former master. You know who I am, don't you? You've known all along, huh? From the moment we were reunited. Can you recognize metempsychosis? The transmigration of souls? But you need not understand this on a spiritual level. Intellectual cognition may also be possible. Besides, we, have already confiscated the mansion. This is my reading room now. The writing desk, too, belongs to me. You know how it is. In short, this is how it is. The diaries you are chewing on are the diaries I am now supplementing. For each diary that decomposes in your stomach, you race further towards the resurrection. With each notebook that your stomach breaks down. Wait, isn't this a garbled metaphor? I don't even know. All I can say is that with each notebook your stomach digests, you roundly embody another aspect of the universe. I could probably replace roundly embody with master a posteriori. Make flesh and blood might work too. But this is why I write. Why I wrote then, why I'm writing now, with this little hand that's not even 10. With these little fingers and a big pen. Yet there was something not to my liking. Calendars. Notions of days, months, years. Keeping track of what day, of what month, of what year it was in Hell Era. What nonsense is this? So I cut things off on Hell's Day 7. I ripped out the pages for that day, refused to hand them over to the goat. Say, I have something important to say. There are pages in this hell diary. There's a first page and a last page. The diary has an ending. Most definitely has an ending. In light of this fact, I say, utter, or rather declare, any diary that chronicles these days in hell will perforce come to an end. Take note of this. It's an omen. I push on. I lunge ahead, ploddingly. One should not do what is not to one's liking, and so I replace the calendar. So long, Stygian calendar. Hello, Gregorian calendar. I wasn't able to write an entry for Hell Day 8. For that day I wrote a different date, some day in July 2000. For some reason on that day I had begun preparing for the countdown to the end of the 20th century when suddenly a thought occurred to me. On what day did the 20th century begin? January 1st, 1901. Okay, then on what day did the 20th century come to an end? December 31st, 2000. So the 20th century is over, right? Wrong. July 28th. I slipped the gold ring through the cell phone strap. That was yesterday. The gold ring that had been the rooster's ID anklet. I once protected this anklet. Now this anklet protects my cell phone. License for survival, pledge. July 29th. Suddenly the machines catch fire. We alter our strategy. I'm the leader, the one issuing directions. I am Lieutenant Little Girl. July 30th. Write something, damn it. July 31st. The goat is grazing peacefully. Wait, aren't goats supposed to be ruminant animals? I spoke to the goat. You shall race to the resurrection. I recited this with great obduracy. For repetition is incantory, you see, like magic or a curse. The repetition of words, spoken or written. Come on, damn it, write. Write, I say. I write. Mark my stick-to-itiveness. The resolution of the pictures continue to improve apace. Any moment now we will start intercepting communications. Any moment now we will ready the machines for interceptions. Impertinences of Mezu number 9, the machines will not be incinerated. August 1st. I set up communications. We begin intercepting. At 1600 hell hour, we will bug the brothers' meaning about the bugging of the mother's lines. We have no hankering for the latest news from Russia. Did someone say Russia? At 1930 hell hour, we succeed in sending out a dispatch. We establish a hotline with the sanctuary. But the hotline was only an audio circuit. The picture was missing. August 2nd. The picture portrays resentments. It should start coming in clear any minute now. At 0820 hell hour, a panoramic vista opens up. There's a lake. Really? A lake? And was it shot down? A stray chopper out of formation. Emergency landing at 1000 confirmed. Passengers are alive. I refer to them as the chopper men. The reason seems obvious. Old acquaintances? My relationship between the sanctuary and the government is touch and go. May we partake in the government? I start to fret. At 1500 hell hour, I refer to them once again as the chopper men. See, I'm not fretting. We proceed with a more detailed inspection of the picture. An accident is underway in the brothers' zone. T-H-E-R-S-Z-O-N-E. While listening in on the mother's circuit, we managed to wiretap the Gozu's statement pertaining to the accident. I can see clearly now that the chopper's men, that's right, chopper men, are projecting the faces of the Orthodox European bovine descended Gozu on their spherical, full-face helmets, which is to say they are projecting their bovine faces onto the Gozu's black spherical helmets that have been furnished with the light-proof function. I feel this scene to be truly astonishing, and so we all were astonished en masse. Then, in threatening tones, the Gozu addressed the chopper men. Hell has its own street map. This here is Hell's first street, for instance, revealed in the shape of a swollen pool of blood. After calculating the precise location of the brothers' zone, we hurried together towards it. A pool of blood. The phrase does not begin to convey the full reality. We engaged the enemy. We understood. We secured several provisional prisoners of war, and were thus able to obtain information. This is definitely not a pool. It is a lake, and this lake has a name. The lake has already been topographically designated. Lake Beethoven, they call it. Its dimensions are approximately that of Tokyo's Oto. Nor have I seen a lake so full of blood, nor has any of us, nor anyone in all of Japan's history, an inordinate amount of human blood. A lake such a lake of... I was at a loss for words. Yet I managed to engage the enemy troops. I, Lieutenant Little Girl, continued issuing orders and assigning missions. And all of this, of course, had nothing to do with that doubtly misunderstood war slogan taken from the Kojiki, 711 to 712, smite till death. And in this lake of blood, dogs are swimming. Hell's watchdogs, hound dogs, the whole lot of them can swim, you see, even white dogs now red with blood. The Gozu came by boat of rowing men, and then a raft. We seized the raft, 1 raft, 3 rafts, 4 rafts, dead children floating, so many poor innocent babies, 2-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 1-year-olds. I wept. How come they are dead? How come they, dead, are afloat in the water, in this water brimming with the blood of men, women, and children? And then I heard, from the depths of the water, music. A capsule could be seen. A large capsule? You rescued the chopper men. Actually, you and your men together saved them. For you, Lieutenant Little Girl, Lady Commandment, were rich in manpower, surrounded as you were by your throng of subordinates. It was not only life-saving missions that you embarked upon, you also made sure to attend the flying machine that made an emergency landing. The hovercraft capable of flying at low altitude, a machine not yet customized for use in hell. Stray chopper. You checked its various meters and gauges. You ordered the chopper men to check those measuring instruments to adjust them to confirm the number of engine revolutions. And they performed these tasks. You served as a living bulwark, wielding your supernormal powers, converting the flames into friendly fire. The flames were a psychological blaze you would once explained. Then sometime on August 2nd, you completed the first step as you returned to your mansion. The giant goat hung from the chopper by a rope. A night-long operation of peeling the roof from the barn had been completed, and the huge beast, still alive, dangled in the ferment. August 3rd, gazing up at the 7-meter goat hovering approximately 10 meters overhead, you addressed him. Hey there, buddy. How you feeling? They're gonna take you away now. This hell, and into the metropole, into the city center that has not yet been cast into this hellfire, into our sanctuary. You continue. And if it's okay with you, I'd like to keep you as a pet. In that old elementary school yard that Tokyo Tower overlooks. If you'd like, we can build our own private hut there, just for you. The second stage of redeployment voyage took us as far as the schoolyard. The goat was still dangling in the azure sky, albeit at a lower height. Some of us were above the Earth's surface, some below, but all were safe. We had made it. This all took place on August 3rd and was recorded in your diary. The process unfolded in 3 phases. First, you ordered your men, those you refer to as we, to build a hut for the goat. Second, upon entering negotiations with the rescued chopper men, and thus, effectively with the government as well, you ordered giant customized headphones for the goat. An illustrious light electronic appliances manufacturer pledged to cooperate, and so the headphones bore the Sony logo. A Walkman. In other words, you stated proudly. And third, you remembered to request a radio frequency tuning function for the Walkman. You also made sure that the tuning could be done via brainwaves and that every mini FM station established, however precariously, throughout the sanctuary could tune in. And because Japan was #1, the request went through. Progress was well-nigh spontaneous. Japan is #1. The brainwaves were those of the goat. First day of tuning, August 4th. Second day of tuning, August 5th. Third day of tuning, August... I cannot write down this date.
Editing Nico here out of Gongcha. So the last minute or so of this recording got corrupted and just sort of stopped working, so I had to re-record it here. And the sound works fine, but the video doesn't. So I'm just gonna have it play with the audio and put like a picture or something above it, but I wanted to just explain what was going on. Anyway, that's it. Back to the video. Our plan was eventually to elicit sound directly from the goat. No doubt it would have been the sound of rock and roll. But such hypothetical musings are now unnecessary. We listened to the rock and roll, to the goat's Sony headphones, to the lines of his custom-made Walkman. It was Chuck Berry's 1956 tune, Roll Over Beethoven, which the Beatles would cover 7 years later. That sounds about right, we were thinking. I was thinking. You see, Beethoven Lake had been rolled over, turned in upon itself, or rather, we had desired that it be turned in upon itself, the sorrow and the sin. We thought the power of rock and roll might serve as a check against these. We said we would try to atone. We made a wish. We arranged to send the song from the goat's Walkman directly into an amplifier and then blast it throughout the sanctuary. Blast it into the depths of hell, all the way to the pits of purgatory. But just then there was an explosion. I can see it clearly. Might this be a new type of bomb? I make a phone call. Hastily, I take out my silver-gray metallic cell phone, dial, and say, "You must now be not a day over 77. Just then the gold ring dangling from the strap sways, is swaying, and I, irradiated, perish.
Number 9. Little Richard. Not bad for being.
It's still recording.
My roommate came back. Why can't I read this sentence? Pardon? The present tense switches to the should get a hat. I keep getting hat hair from these frequent transfers. The walls of the barn vibrate with each wail. Oh my god.